Welcome to the Embodied Self podcast, a place for you to discover, explore, and embrace your truest expression. I'm your host, Ashley Pearl, and I believe wholeheartedly that the path to your most meaningful, joyful, and vibrant life is through becoming who you truly are. Join me as I share personal stories and have soul-expanding conversations alongside incredible humans just like you, with the intention to inspire your journey of personal exploration. We'll cover topics of self-development, wellness, spirituality, and so much more. And better yet, we'll share tangible tools and practices to support your most aligned life. So together, let's dive in and see what magic awaits on the other side of your most embodied self. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Embodied Self podcast. I am your host, Ashley Pearl, and I am so excited to bring you another solo today. Today is Valentine's Day, and as you can tell, the grocery stores have had pink and red aisles for some time now, chocolates, flowers, all of the things. And personally, I do feel pretty strongly that we shouldn't wait for just one day of the year or for a calendar to tell us to buy ourselves or someone we love a gift or share how we feel about someone. That gets to happen on an ongoing basis in my world. And while I don't personally really celebrate this holiday, and I know some of my listeners do and don't, there's no doubt that there's a ton of messaging out there right now about love. Yeah, the topic of love is in the air. And so I thought, what a perfect time to do an episode all about the one type of love that needs to exist if you want to receive fully the love from others, if you want to give love purely and freely to another, and if you want to spread love and be a conduit of love, there's something that really needs to be present from within first. Can you guess what it is? That's right. We are talking all about self-love, baby. One of my favorite quotes comes from the hilarious and incredible Lucille Ball, who says, "Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line." And I believe what she meant by this was when we're not making decisions from a place of love from ourselves or, acting from this place of self-love, we're acting or making decisions from a place of fear or lack, scarcity, wounding, and what we create in our lives, what we see happen in our lives reflects that. It pulls us further away from who we are and what we were born as, which is love. Here's a thought that has stuck with me for a while. At the end of the day, you are literally the only person that you can guarantee you'll be with for the rest of your life, right? You're the only one that you know for sure that you are going to be with until the day that you die. And no one else has to live your life. Not your mom or your dad or your siblings or your partners or your teachers or your lovers or whomever. It's you. Only you experiences your life, right? So wouldn't it make sense to want to love yourself fully and completely and create a life that feels really freaking good? Wouldn't it make sense to live a life and make decisions because of what feels best for you and not anybody else? You might feel like self-love is so natural to you and you're committed to it daily, and you might feel like you're far away from it. And I just want to preface this episode by saying that wherever you are, it is absolutely perfect. You get to honor where you are in this journey right now. And in just listening to this episode, you're already doing something very, very loving for yourself. and you're definitely on your way to cultivating self-love from within. Because in this episode, I am going to share with you the 8 keys to cultivating self-love. These are truly, truly pure gold, people, okay? These are tools, practices, concepts that I have seen work. I've seen them as the most valuable and most impactful practices, really. Everything I share with you, in these episodes, they're not just ideas that I've had. These are learnings from books and from podcasts and renowned teachers and healers and programs and, yes, my own experiences, but also what I've seen work with my own clients and the people that I've worked with. And I don't think I've shared this yet on the show, but this is very much so part of the work that I do for a living. I am an empowerment coach, and I am a breathwork guide, and I essentially get to guide others into full self-empowerment. Every single person has the capacity to heal themselves and to transform, and it is my greatest joy in this world to show others how to transcend struggle and anxiety and self-sabotage and fear and everything else that holds people back from, really fully expressing themselves and living in alignment with their souls and stepping fully into their true power, stepping fully into self-love and confidence and joy, which is attainable to everybody and deserving by all. I work in one-to-one settings with people. I'll soon be offering a group program that's in the works. And I also mentor within a 10-month trauma-informed coaching certification program called Pause. And so I've seen we, graduate about close to 100 women every year. And so I've seen firsthand the tools that work, right? The same themes that come up that keep people from experiencing self-love and what needs to happen or gets to happen in order to transcend all of that noise. What I'm about to share with you truly, truly are some of the things that I see make the biggest impact. And I'm so grateful to share it with you here on this platform because I know how freaking powerful this knowledge is, I know the ripple effect that this gets to have in the world. And you're going to want something to write with because what I'm sharing with you, you can honestly start implementing today. Maybe you listen for the first time today and then set aside time this week or weekend to make a cozy space for yourself and light some candles and dive into some of these practices. Yeah? Because truly, these can change your life. And I know that's a pretty big claim, but I'm going to make it. So first and foremost, let's just define, self-love together. You get to make your own definition, of course, of what this means to you, but I'll share how I define it or think about it. So self-love, to me, is the ongoing practice and commitment to choosing yourself and your well-being first. Yeah, above all else, choosing your own well-being through the actions that you take, the thoughts that you think, where you're placing your energy and how you're spending your time. Choosing yourself and your well-being. Yeah? When you love yourself and you choose to live from a place of loving yourself first, just like my girl Lucille Ball once said, everything else just seems to fall into place, right? And I already know, I can already feel it, that there are some of you out there, right? My big-hearted, selfless people out there, maybe some parents, right, who love your children so much, and they're your first priority, and you might say, like, no, like, they're like, I care for others over myself every single time. And I get it. I totally get it. as much as someone without kids can get it, but I'm deeply empathic and I do know what it feels like to love little humans outside of yourself so much that you do anything for them to ensure that they're happy and safe and all of that, right? I feel it and I get it. And I encourage you as you're listening to this episode to consider the idea that when you are loving to yourself in all the ways, right? We'll get into all the ways in a moment. You can show up even more for others. You can show up even more for your children or your friends or your partner, right? You can show up with truer intentions and a pure heart. Yeah. Entertain this idea, right? Just humor me for this episode. Entertain the idea that if you love yourself first, you are doing what's actually best for others. Yeah? So, the first few keys to cultivating self-love, they're more like concepts and ideas or perspectives that are going to be so supportive to your journey of cultivating more self-love. Okay? Number 1, self-love is a muscle. It's a muscle. And it's not something that you achieve and then you have forever. It's something you get to work on an ongoing basis. If you spent like 6 months training your biceps only, you'd likely have some huge biceps, right? And if you immediately stopped working out your biceps after those 6 months, it wouldn't be long before they started to get, scrawny again, right? Well, same goes for self-love. It's a muscle that you get to exercise and work. And when you set your intention on it and when you put energy towards it, it'll grow and it'll get stronger and it'll make other areas of your life way easier. Yeah? Self-love is a daily commitment. It's a moment-by-moment practice of accepting and choosing to be on your own team. And so rather than view it as this goal that is achieved and then you have it forever, which I think a lot of people tend to think, I know I did for a while, see it as this ongoing goal to be, dedicated to. And if you miss a day or you miss a few days and you fall off track, that's okay. Because the minute you start bringing focus back to it, the minute you start exercising it again, the stronger it gets immediately. How incredible is that? And I share this because I really do see that, especially in the self-development industry and with diet culture, it's like people think that self-love is something you achieve and then you just have, right? Some people maybe were born with it, some people weren't, but to believe that, once you get your body to look a certain way, then you'd experience self-love. Or like once you get that promotion at work, then you'll be worthy. Then you'll really love yourself. So many people that are swept up in diet culture especially get lost in this promise of doing something to achieve self-love. And that actually brings us to our next concept. So number 1, self-love is a muscle. It's something that you got to work at on an ongoing basis. It's not something that you achieve. The second concept and perspective that's going to be really supportive is that self-love is cultivated from within, not without. Meaning that true unconditional self-love is not tied to anything external, like another person or your body size or the money in your bank account or your relationship status, okay? It is important that the love you have for yourself is so strong that you aren't dependent on outsourcing love from other people or external things, right? Because external things can go away at any time, and then your love is wavering. So to put this into some real examples here, what's your relationship to yourself and self-love when you're not in a relationship with another person, right? Do you feel bad about yourself or unworthy until you're in a relationship where someone can confirm or validate that you're lovable. That's an example of outsourcing love. How do you feel when you have no money in your bank account versus when you have money in your bank account? Right? How do you feel when certain people in your life or loved ones are giving you attention and acknowledging you, right? Of course, everyone loves, not everybody, but some people really enjoy that, right? It's nice to be validated, acknowledged. But do you depend on that to feel self-love? Do you depend on that to feel worthy? And if so, that's an example where you're outsourcing your love, right? Because if you go a week and then you don't receive any validation from anybody, where's your worthiness at that stage, at that point? And I just want to say that this is so, so natural. This is so, so common, right? And so when you reflect on this, it is so important to just be kind with yourselves and compassionate. And that's actually going to be a sneak preview into a future key here. But it's really, really important to remember that a lot of this stuff is learned. A lot of this stuff is learned. A lot of this stuff was modeled for us when we were younger, and we took on the programming and, built connections between something and what that meant about us and our worthiness and whether we were lovable. Which brings us to the third key for cultivating more self-love, is to have the understanding that conditional self-love is learned. Okay? Conditional self-love is learned. Conditional being the opposite of unconditional, right? You were born worthy and loving and self-loving, and as you grew up, you learned certain things about you maybe weren't lovable from people who were probably wounded themselves or learned from, their parents or caregivers what really was lovable. And I'm using air quotes here because, again, these are learned things. They're not true. They're just distortions that we kind of take on as we are growing up. And so having this concept in your awareness, it really helps you to have a little compassion for yourself, right? If you aren't where you want to be in terms of unconditional self-love, remember that you learned this somewhere, right? Whether it's from the media or from your family or from friends and all the other, opportunities for patterning we have as we grow older. And just knowing that, right? You get to kind of observe your sense of self-love from a distance and be like, okay, growing up, I maybe received the messaging that if I was in a bigger body, that meant I was less likely to be loved. Maybe you were taught growing up that success meant that you made partner at your firm or that you went to Harvard or something else, right? And because of that, you developed these connections like, okay, I'm lovable if, right? The conditional self-love is learned. And here's the amazing thing. Because it's learned, it can be unlearned, right? Through these practices that I'm going to share today. It all comes full circle. So let's move into the remaining keys to cultivating self-love. And these are going to be a little bit more tangible, right? Some tools, some practices, some frameworks that you can literally start using today. So the fourth key to cultivating unconditional self-love is to be mindful of how you talk to yourself, right? I always say that you have to move from having an inner bully to having an inner bestie or an inner bae. And for those of you who are wondering what bae means, I had to Google it. a long time ago when I kept hearing it everywhere. It means before anyone else. So you got to be your own bae. You got to choose yourself first before anyone else and be your own bestie. And that's enough with the alliteration there, but you get the point. So the reality is that so many of us walk around with inner bullies, right? People, the voices in your heads, those inner critics that point out every single flaw, that get on your ass for all the things that you're not doing right, that love to point out all the things you could be doing better. Does that sound familiar at all? And that inner critic voice, it can be really nasty, right? I know, I've been there. And here's the thing, you can't really experience self-love and sustainable change or taking steps towards what it is you want in life when it's coming from this hateful or shameful place. You just can't. It might work for a little bit of time, but not for the long haul, right? And who wants to live with a mean girl, with a Regina George stuck in your head, making them feel bad, right? If you don't understand that reference, go watch the movie Mean Girls and you'll get it. But so what can you do about this, right? Okay, Ashley, yeah, I have an inner critic, so what? What can I do? Just setting the intention around this is key. And it's one of the best ways that you can really do this is through something called progressive statements. So these are different than affirmations. They're different than positive affirmations because affirmations are a little scary to the ego, right? The ego likes consistency and familiarity. And so with progressive statements, we aren't going to be saying we are something, right? Like, I love myself fully. Rather, because that's going to freak the ego out if you do that. And then you're going to self-sabotage and then you're going to be sad. Rather, we use progressive statements, and it makes it a little more digestible for the ego, a little bit less scary, and it helps prevent self-sabotage. So you use statements that are revolving around phrases like I'm in the process of, or I'm becoming, okay? So you can set your intention, find one of these that maybe feels good, or maybe you make your own. But here are some examples of how you can use progressive statements to treat yourself a little better. Be mindful of how you're talking to yourself in your head, okay? So statement number 1. I am becoming the type of person who speaks to themselves lovingly. Number 2, I am in the process of speaking to myself with love and compassion. And you can make your own, but just make sure that the front part of the statement is like in the process of, or I'm becoming the type of person who, that type of thing. And when you set this intention of becoming more mindful of how you're speaking to yourself, you'll notice when the bully's voice is getting really loud, and then you can begin to feed the thoughts that are way more supportive. You know, you can view it, you can distance yourself from it and choose a better way. I really recommend making some Post-its with your intention or your progressive statement on it and putting it around your apartment or your car or wherever you notice that voice getting really loud. You know, put it there. Maybe it's in your bathroom mirror, right, on your shower door. Just keeping it in your vision so that it can be top of mind. And so I actually did a really in-depth workshop sometime last year where I go into way more tools and information about the inner critic, you know, what it even is, why it exists, why do so many of us experience it. And then I provide some really, really amazing tools in that training that is way more in depth than what we're going to go into here today. So, you know, I'll post, I'm thinking in the show notes, a link to that if you want to go a little bit deeper, because this can honestly be a whole topic in itself. But ultimately, when you change the thoughts you think and how you speak to yourself, your reality changes and your beliefs change. And as such, your actions change and your standards change. And you set a different standard for how you treat yourself and how others treat you. And this is just a really beautiful place to start. So that is number 4. And which brings us to our next key for cultivating self-love. And this one is a popular one. You've probably heard it, but have you heard it described by me? Probably not. So let's go. Number 5 is creating loving boundaries. I know you've heard this word so much, and it's because it really is so important. It's so important for emotional well-being and mental health and physical and spiritual well-being and so much more. So, going back to our definition of self-love for a second, this ongoing commitment of prioritizing yourself and your well-being, because you are a beautifully complex and unique individual, your loving boundaries are going to look really different than mine or someone else's. But in order to cultivate, more self-love, you have to really understand first what your values are so that you can create loving boundaries to support you in honoring those values. I'm going to pause and make sure that made sense. In order to cultivate more self-love, you have to understand what your values are so that you can create loving boundaries to help you honor those values. This is like such an important piece, you guys, because if you don't know what your values are, then when people maybe overstep, or if you act out of alignment with your values, you're not going to know why you're feeling some type of way. Yeah, so I recommend starting with your values if you don't know what they are when I say that. So many people are walking around not knowing what their values are, but your body always knows. And so when you're acting out of alignment with your values, or someone crosses a boundary that's tied to an important value of yours, your body's going to react. Trust me on this one. Your body is going to react, and you might be unsure or uncertain what actually is happening. And that kind of gets into embodiment. But when you cross your own boundaries, or other people cross your boundaries that are tied to key values, that really impacts your joy. I'll think of some examples for you. Let's say there's someone out there, one of you are like me, and you love being social for some of the time, and you also need time to recharge your batteries, and you enjoy alone time and having quiet and spaciousness to read or explore your own inner landscape. Like that is a value of mine, and perhaps it's a value of yours as well. If not setting boundaries to honor this value could look like having like a packed social schedule and no alone time whatsoever. You're working all week, you're doing dinners and birthdays, and your weekends are filled with events, all the events that people are inviting you to, and then you're asked to babysit, so you say yes, and someone's like, oh, can you watch my dog? And you're like, totally. And thus, at the end of the weekend, you're depleted, you're exhausted. Maybe even you're a little agitated because you're tired and you didn't get any alone time, or you didn't get good sleep, and maybe you end up taking that out on others or picking a fight with a partner, who knows? That is an example of not setting a boundary, honoring your value of needing time for yourself. Here's what setting a boundary would look like in that case. Reviewing your schedule for the week, realistically gauging where your energy is and how much social and alone time you need, and setting a loving boundary. Like, okay, I'm going to maybe allow myself 40% social time, 60% alone time. That's what I'm feeling I'm needing. Or like, I'm just going to honor when my body's needing to rest this week, right? These boundaries can look however they need to. So sure, you might get invited to all these things, and people might ask you to watch their dog or come to their birthday dinner or whatever, but you don't overcommit. Maybe you commit to 1 to 2 things that you really want to go to. And for the others, you say, thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm actually going to pass, but I'd love to be invited to something in the future. Right? Now, hear me out. For all of you people pleasers out there, this is going to bring up some fear. It's going to stir something up for you because there are some parts that are going to be activated within you. And if the people pleaser is strong in you, I know it was really strong in me once upon a time, this is where you get to do some personal work. Yep. That was a really long example. But some other shorter examples would be, what type of activities are you available for? If you hate watching sports, then don't agree to go to all these sports games with your friends if you're not going to enjoy it. Yeah? Maybe suggest something else. If your friend invites you out for Chinese food, don't just say yes, right? If you don't like Chinese food. If you're waking up exhausted every morning and it's really like making you just really groggy and agitated in the morning, and then you're not showing up well at work or you're not getting your workouts in, you can set a boundary around that. Set a boundary around your nighttime routine. Like that is your sacred time, right? Maybe you commit to spending some time winding down and spending your evenings in a way that's more supportive to you and having a productive next day. If you can hear from all these examples, this is what I mean by choosing yourself and your well-being first, right? Maybe you don't watch TV before bed every night. Maybe you put your phone on airplane mode. Maybe you put your phone on airplane mode until the next morning, and when you're done, connecting to yourself. That's a huge boundary of mine. And when I don't honor it, I can tell. Other people can tell. And I want to be clear that I'm saying the word boundary and not rule for a very important reason. Because rules are essentially boundaries that we create from a place of fear. Okay, like fear, like rules around what food you can eat and rules around how many days a week you have to exercise. Like those are examples of rules that are rooted in fear. And boundaries are created from a place of love. They're worded differently. They leave a little bit more spaciousness. It's like I have a boundary that I'm going to honor my body every week when it comes to how many social engagements I go to. It leaves spaciousness, but it also gives me that distance to between someone inviting me to something and me checking in with my boundary and being like, checked in. My body's freaking tired. I'm gonna pull out of this event, whatever. The more that you honor your boundaries and the more you respect your values, the happier you'll be, the more peace you'll experience. And as such, the more self-love you'll cultivate, because it really is so fun to fall in love with this process of honoring yourself. It just is. It started, like I said before, it's this muscle that just strengthens and strengthens. And it's like you cultivate this ooey gooey self-love and people look at you and they're like, damn, that person respects themselves. Wow, they had the confidence to, pull out of this social engagement an hour before because they weren't feeling it or their body was just really tired and they were going to honor that. To some people, yeah, they might be triggered by that, but to others, and this is how I felt when I started really spending time with people who had just boss boundaries. I was like, wow, that person really respects themselves and loves themselves. And you can feel that energy. People can feel that in your energy, and people are inspired by the people that do that. I know I was. And so I really could talk about this all day, but I'm gonna end it there because, again, boundaries can be its own topic as well. Episode topic, that is. Let's move on to number 6, shall we? Number 6 is releasing comparison. This is a big one. In the age of social media, we are truly faced with such an opportunity to strengthen our inner confidence and self-love and trust and work through releasing comparison. Here's the thing. Everyone is on their own unique journey in this human experience. Everyone is here to complete their own unique missions and learn their own unique lessons. And so when you consider that, it really is silly to waste your time on jealousy and comparison, right? One of my favorite quotes, and I did try to find the original writer of this, and somewhere it said it was Baz Luhrmann, probably pronouncing that incorrectly. And then I read that it actually wasn't that person, that it was some Chicago Tribune article, and then somewhere else. I know it appears in the Wear Sunscreen commencement address, but here is the quote. It reads, "Don't waste your time on jealousy. Sometimes you're ahead, sometimes you're behind. The race is long, and in the end, it is only with yourself." It's only with yourself, you guys. When you have this mindset, you can really begin to put your blinders on and feed all that energy that you're wasting on comparing yourself to others back into yourself and loving yourself. And it does take effort. I have to remind myself, I just think blinders, Ashley, blinders. Here's the thing about comparison too, that's so important here. When you see someone on social media, let's say, who you feel jealous of or who you're comparing yourself to, maybe they're going on all the vacations and doing all the things that you want to do, and they just got that big promotion at work or that job that just looks amazing or whatever it is. It's actually not the thing that you think you want. It's how you think you're going to feel once you have the thing. So let me explain here. Think about something that you find yourself often comparing, okay? So just think to yourself. Maybe we'll use the vacation as an example because I feel like that's a big one. When you see someone going on all these extravagant vacations and you're comparing, you're like, well, crap, I'm not going on as many vacations as that person. Ask yourself, how do you think vacations are going to make you feel? Is it free? Is it, expansive? Not feeling as stressed? That is actually what you're after. It's the feeling that you're after, not the actual thing. Same thing with if you follow, fit models on Instagram and you're comparing yourself. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't look that way in that bikini. What is it that you're actually seeking? How are you actually wanting to feel? It's probably, love. You want to experience love. You're wanting to experience confidence. And so what you can do in these moments is to write down what it is you're actually looking to experience or how you're hoping to feel. So that would be the first step. And then the second step is writing down a list of all the things that actually bring you those things, those emotions, those feelings, those experiences today. Yeah? So going back to that vacation experience, let's say there's someone who's living in Bali and they're working from the beach and you're comparing yourself. You're like, damn, I want that. You feel lack. Ask yourself, what is the feeling that you're actually longing for here? Maybe it's freedom, expansion, love. And then ask yourself, how do those things show up in my life right now? Let's take freedom, for example. You can say, my steady job gives me the financial freedom and I'm actually able to travel. I'm free to, buy something for myself if I see something that I really like and I think it'll add value to my life. Maybe there's a park that you go to and when you walk through it and you hear the birds chirp and the leaves, rustling, you feel love and you feel expansiveness and you just feel all that flow through you. So I encourage you to try it, try these steps anytime you're noticing yourself comparing. And then remember, blinders, put those blinders on. One real tangible tool for you as a way to put blinders on is to use the mute function. You can unfollow on social media, but I tried doing that and Instagram knocked me off. So I tried to get to 0 like following, and Instagram did not like that. So use the mute function. Mute anyone on social media that makes you feel less than, or makes you feel like the life you're living isn't good enough, or makes you feel less loving towards yourself because you don't look like the other person, or you don't have what they have, or whatever it is. You can just take those things out of your life. You don't need to do that to yourself. You don't have to subscribe yourself and put yourself through that, right? If you do notice that you're being triggered over and over again by the same things, right? The same person or the same situation, whatever it is, then take note, because that's where there's some work for you to do, for sure. Those are some opportunities. But you get to ultimately choose what you bring into your awareness. And that in itself is an act of self-love, right? That's in fact a boundary, actually, when you think about it. So trying these things will 1000% strengthen your ability to cultivate self-love, because you're going to be sending the message down to your body that, one, you're worthy of not, putting some of these things into your awareness, like you love yourself that much. And two, with regards to comparison, your body hears the thoughts you think. Your body hears all of it. And so when you start to, rather than compare yourself, just realizing that you actually have access to a lot of these things that you're looking for, you're going to be sending the message down to your body that your current reality is enough. Yeah, your current reality is enough, and that you have everything you need. And sure, you can want to take that vacation to Bali, or you can want to have, a beautiful boho chic apartment. Like, if those things will make you truly happy, great, go for it. But you get to accept where you are in this very moment, and in every moment as you are in the pursuit of other things that you maybe truly think will make you happy. Yeah? All right. Our 7th key is to choose compassion and kindness always. So as you're cultivating more self-love, things might get stirred up a little bit. You might notice, whoa, I totally did not honor that boundary this week, or whoa, my inner bully was fierce as hell today, or whoa, I watched Netflix until 3 a.m. every single night this week, and I've been a zombie at work, Whatever it is, remember that every single second of every single day is a new opportunity to choose a new loving approach, a new loving strategy. You get to keep looking forward and just be so compassionate and kind with yourself as you rewire and unlearn years and years and years of patterning and behaviors. Right? This goes back to what we were saying earlier, which is you likely have a good reason for doing what you do and your patterns and all these things. And if you learned that, self-love is something that is conditioned upon whatever external factors you want to insert here, it's going to take time to unlearn that. It's going to take time and effort to repattern and rewire your subconscious and your what's familiar to you. So just being kind and compassionate with yourself and remembering that, wow, you are doing such a brave, courageous, loving act just by even trying to take this on, right? It's really, really big. All right, number 8. This is a really fun one. We're going to end on a fun note. Number 8 is to be your own lover. Be your own girlfriend, boyfriend, significant other. See your relationship with yourself as you would a relationship with a partner. Ask yourself, how do you strengthen your relationship with your partners or husbands or wives or girlfriends, boyfriends, whomever in your life today? You treat them with kindness and love and respect, I'm sure, right? You give them attention. You're present with them. Maybe you show them that you care by dressing up a little bit. You don't only have to dress nice for other people or when other people are around. Get dolled up for yourself. Wear a color that makes you feel fucking awesome. Do you take significant others out on dates, right? How can you date yourself in the same way? How can you take yourself out and do something exciting, something that you love to do to strengthen that relationship and to show that you care and that you're worthy? Because you are. Do you listen to your partner when they want to share their feelings or emotions? Can you do the same for yourself? Right? When something's coming up, do you ignore it or not? I mean, I'm sure if you kept ignoring when your partner was bringing up something to you, it'd be a little bit of a problem. Same thing goes with your relationship to yourself. And, exploring what could be some loving experiences. Maybe it's self-massage. Maybe it's cooking yourself an amazing, nice meal and lighting candles and removing distractions, or maybe reading an amazing book, right? Like there's so many opportunities to be your own lover, and you just have to explore it and consider, like, how are you actually treating yourself? And is it different than how you would treat a partner in a relationship? And if it is vastly different, then that's where you get to explore. And this one's such a juicy one because there's so much self-love that gets to be cultivated from just being your own lover. All right, everyone. So there you have it. Those are the 8 keys to cultivating more self-love. And I'd actually like to share a little bonus one here. Because if self-love seems so freaking out of reach to you right now, if you're just like, oh my gosh, all of those, there's no way I can even think about speaking to myself nicely or whatever it is, right? One, I want to honor where you're at. I want to honor where you're at so much because it is okay. You get to start where you are. And if this is where you are in this moment, something that could be supportive is to just start with neutrality. It doesn't have to be self-love right away. Maybe it's just neutrality. Maybe it's trying to get to a place where you're indifferent, where you're neutral, When I was healing my relationship to my body, and I'm always in the process of, but I had to start with neutrality. Going to self-love, it seemed so far away for a really long time that I started with neutrality. It was like, if I can get to a place where I'm just like, this is where I'm at. It's neither good nor bad. It just is. And I'm okay with it because I know that it just is. And it's a really beautiful, like, stepping stone or bridge to hang out in the neutrality space until a point where self-love seems a little bit more accessible to you or tangible to you. And so, you can just kind of think of some of the things I shared today. You can, again, just remember that you have a really good reason for having these thoughts, patterns, feelings, whatever it is. And nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. And like I said earlier, every moment of every day is a new opportunity to choose a more loving approach. And if you're listening to this, you're already on your way. So just trust and honor where you are in your journey. So if you even choose, all of you, to focus on just one of these, taking one of these away, I know that you will, without a doubt, experience some real shifts in the way that you treat yourself, the way that you feel in your own skin, the way that you treat others as a result of how you feel in your own skin. And I would love to hear how this goes for you. Are you going to try something? Are you going to try all of them, some of them, one of them, none of them? If you do try them, please let me know. You can send me a DM on Instagram, at Ashley Dawn Pearl. It's all in the show notes. I would love to hear how this goes because, again, this is something these are all things that I've seen change my life, change the lives of others, and I hope, my intention is for it to support you in, changing yours as well. And in the spirit of this love day, if you are looking for a way to show this podcast some love, I have some ideas for you. And they're free. 1, you can send your favorite episode or this entire show to a friend or a coworker or a spin instructor, or maybe even sending out an email blast to some people that you know who would really love and benefit from the transmissions that come through on the show. I would be so grateful if you did that. Number 2, you can subscribe. You can subscribe to the show. Never miss an episode. Hear it right when it comes out by subscribing. You can do this on Apple Podcasts. You can follow it on Spotify. You can subscribe on YouTube. And you can also subscribe to my email newsletter, because I'm always sharing these episodes through there as well. In fact, sometimes I even share it earlier. My email list is my VIP. They get special treatment. I'll be honest. They get a little special treatment. So those are all options. I'll share the details in the show notes. And then lastly, this one's a good one, and I would appreciate this so much. You could leave a 5-star rating and a review. This really goes a long way, because in order for this podcast to reach more people, in order for it to show up in lists and things like this, when people search like self-love, in order for this to actually pop up, the algorithm looks at reviews and ratings. And when someone pops over to my show and they see it, the reviews and the ratings also, this really helps bring more people to it and get more people curious. So on this special day of love, I invite you to maybe do that, or choose your favorite, or do all of what I just shared. That would be incredible, and I would be so grateful. I'm so grateful for all of you, and I'm so excited to hear how these keys to cultivating self-love go for you. Know that this is not a one and done situation. This is an ongoing journey, an ongoing commitment, and there's just going to be so much love spread in the world by you doing this work. And so I thank you. I thank you so much.